G'day everyone, welcome back to another Pokemon run, and today I'm going to see how I fare when I face Pokemon Platinum with only a Gliscor. Why Gliscor? Because I like it. Anyways, I think this run will be mostly straightforward, aside from a few battles that I'll touch on later, so let's get on to Gliscor's bio. In terms of stats, the defense is obviously incredible, and the attack and speed are pretty damn good as well. The special attack is... well, it's not like we're going to use it, so it won't matter. Onto his moveset, and the thing with Gliscor that jumps out at you is the 3 Fang moves, which allows for insane coverage, and even Poison Jab, which is another great cover move. Learning Sword Stance at level 34 will also prove to be pretty useful, I reckon, because it will basically allow us to cover and sweep through most teams once we learn it. Looking at the TMs that Gliscor can learn, we probably don't need to look any further than Earthquake. It's the only TM we'll need, period. And the biggest challenges we'll face in this run will probably be Wake, but especially Candace, since Ice is 4 times effective on Gliscor. However, with Heart Scales and Sword Stance, I can teach Gliscor Thunderfang to counter Crash Awake, and Fire Fang to counter Candace, though it probably won't be as easy as that. Anyway, let's move on to the restrictions in place for this run. Number 1, I'll only be able to use Gliscor in battle. Number 2, I can't use any items in battle, but I can hold held items, though I'll try to limit that as much as I can. And I'll obviously be allowed to catch any Pokemon for HM purposes. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this run, and let's get to it. So first, yeah, thanks Baz. Anyway, we headed to Route 201 and picked up Gliscor and battled Baz. This battle went as smoothly as you think, as we take out Piplup in 2 Poison Jabs. Having a quick look over Gliscor's bio, he's got an Adamant Nature, plus attack minus special attack, which is perfect when you combine it with Hyper Cutter, an ability which disallows opponents to lower our attack. This couldn't have been a better start, and Gliscor also starts up with a Ripper moveset. We've got Poison Jab, and that's it. Next, we nicknamed Gliscor Gliscor. Amazing creativity, I know. We then had a nice chat to old mate Luca at Jubilife City before we headed off to battle Barry. This was a relatively easy battle, just a Poison Jab spam fest and we got the job done. We then headed off to Orberg Mine, and after fighting off all the Geodudes, we finally get Rourke out of his natural habitat so that we can have a battle with him. Having a quick look at Rourke's team, we can see that it's probably going to be a very drawn out battle, especially with his Pokemon having really high defenses. So I think the best move to go with is probably Poison Jab and trying to get the poison off, and then finishing them off with either Poison Jab again or Knockoff. Let's see how we go. Right on cue, we poisoned Geodude with the first Poison Jab, but that was the only thing that went right for us in this attempt, because even after countless sand attacks I threw at Geodude, and even Onix, they just hit every single rock throw, which is a 90% accurate move, and because they hit so many, we were only left with 10 HP by the time that Cranidos was out. Though, even after Onix went down, we did learn Quick Attack, even though it was probably not going to be helpful in this gym. We were then promptly taken out by Rourke's last Pokemon, Cranidos. Second attempt, and I tried something a little different and used Harden. But the RNG obviously didn't like me, as Geodude hits a critical rock throw which bypasses the defense buff. So then I poisoned Geodude with a Poison Jab and spammed Knockoff. It was then Onix who was out next, and I used the same strategy. It was another grind though, as we went back and forth with Knockoff and Rock Throw. Rourke also used a potion to extend this ultra boring battle, but we eventually take it out with about 13 HP remaining after we leveled up. Luckily for us, Cranidos didn't land a critical hit, and we take it out, earning ourselves the Coal Badge in a relatively comfortable fashion. We then head to Valley... Barry mate, give us a spell. Anyway, at Valley Windworks, Mars was pretty easy as we take out Zubat in 2 quick attacks. Perugly then uses Fake Out to flinch us, but Poison Jab does about 2/3 damage as she heals up with a Citrus Berry. But her attacks barely scratched us, pun intended, as 2 Poison Jabs take out Perugly to red health and a quick attack finishes her off. Arriving at Eterna City, Barry teaches us the foolproof secret to winning every Pokemon battle ever. Yeah, pretty amazing I know. Heading over to the Eterna Gym, we meet the best champion of all time, Cynthia, where she gives us HM01 Cut. A quick diagnosis of Gardenia's team tells me that this battle will be an absolute cakewalk, with the first 2 Pokemon being weak to Poison Jab, and whilst Roserade might put up a fight, it should still be a pretty straightforward battle. So to start the battle, we take out Turtwig and Cherub with a single poison jab as expected. Next is Roserade, and I opt to use Feint Attack for some odd reason, and being the idiot that I am, because I somehow forgot that poison jab is actually neutral effective on Roserade. She then uses Stun Spore to paralyze us, but Feint Attack and Quick Attack take her down to red health, as Roserade uses Grass Knot and heals with a berry. She then uses Magical Leaf, which takes Gliscor to about half health, but we finish her with a Feint Attack. Gliscor then hits level 28 as we earn ourselves the Forest Badge. Next is Galactic Commander Jupiter. We took her Zubat to about 1 HP with a Feint Attack, as it hits us with a Wing Attack for 6 damage. But instead of finishing Zubat off, I decide to use a couple of Hardens in preparation for Skuntank. We eventually take Zubat out with a Quick Attack. Then, it was time for Skuntank, and our Quick Attacks didn't do very much to it, as Gliscor was poisoned. But I had Gliscor hold an Oran Berry, which regained 10 HP for us. We then trade Quick Attacks and Night Slash, but thanks to the Harden setups, Skuntank wasn't able to deal much damage at all. Gliscor then hit a massive critical hit, bringing Skuntank to red health, as we get hit with another Night Slash and Poison takes us down to 8 HP. We then finish off Skuntank with a Quick Attack, as I'm left to wonder what would have happened if I didn't give Gliscor an Oran Berry before the battle. We then meet the best champion of all time again, and she gives us an egg, with an Arceus inside it obviously. Before the next gym, I head over to Wayward Cave to pick up the TM for Earthquake, and teach it to Gliscor in exchange for Harden. During the Hard Home Gym battles, Gliscor learns Sword Stance, an extremely useful move that I will be quite frankly spamming quite a lot of for the rest of this challenge. Having a quick look over Fantina's team, it's probably not too obvious that the biggest threat here will be Duskull with its Will-O-Wisp, which will not only burn us but also half our attack, as I'm planning to use Sword Stance and sweep through her whole team with Feint Attack. Anyway, let's get on to the battle. So to start, I used Sword Stance like I said, and that was pretty much a wrap to be honest, as we take out Fantina's Duskull with Feint Attack, and next out was Miss Magius, who also went down to a single buff Feint Attack as we took Future Sight damage, which basically did nothing. Last out was Haunter, but it also couldn't withstand a Feint Attack, and with that we earned the Relic Badge in relatively simple fashion. Next up is Barry, and there's really not much to recap here. Yeah, sorry Baz, but hey, we take out Starovia with the Poison Jab and Feint Attack, then Prinplup, Roselia and Ponyta all went down to an Earthquake. Yeah, I did say there wasn't much to recap. Next up is Maylene, and it's probably going to be a similar story to Fantina. We'll use Sword Stance to start off, and we'll probably take out her whole team with an Earthquake. Maylene starts out with a Meta-type who uses Fake Out. We then use Sword Stance as we are hit with a Rock Tomb, which doesn't do much at all. Meta-type is then finished off with a Poison Jab, and next out was Machoke, but it could do little against an Earthquake to the face. Then it was Maylene's ace Lucario, who also went down to a single Earthquake, which earns us the Cobble Badge. And whilst these gym battles may seem easy, we haven't versed the true demon of this run just yet. Anyway, on the way to Pastoria, Gliscor learns X-Scissor, with which to replace Feint Attack for, as I really didn't see a use for it from here on out. So before I even think about taking on the Pastoria gym, I go and pick up a Heart Scale and teach Gliscor Thunderfang, because it's going to be invaluable in this gym. So having a quick look over Crash's team, there's obviously a lot of problems here, but I think if we're able to withstand a Gyarados Waterfall, we'll probably be in good shape, as I'll probably go with a Sword Stance first up, and try to sweep his team with Thunderfang, or Earthquake in Quagsire's case. Now it's time for one of the hardest battles in this run, or so it was supposed to be. Anyway, Crasher first sends out Gyarados, and we use Sword Stance so we can buff out our Thunderfang, as Gyarados' Waterfall doesn't do that much, surprisingly, and very luckily. Then on the next turn, a single Thunderfang takes out Gyarados courtesy of the 4 times effective damage and Sword Stance. Next up was Floatzel, but instead of using Aqua Jet, Wake opts for the greedy Ice Fang, which spelled Tien for Floatzel. Last up was Quagsire, but we take it out with a single Earthquake, earning us the Fen Badge. That went much more smoothly than I had anticipated, even with Thunderfang. We then head to Celestic Town and battle Cyrus, and we take out Sneasel with a single Earthquake. Out next is Golbat, and he manages to survive a Thunderfang and hits an Air Cutter. Cyrus then uses a hyper potion and we hit Golbat with a poison jab. We then finish off Golbat with another Thunderfang as Murkrow comes out, but he too also goes down to a Thunderfang. We then have another quick chat with the best champion of all time, Cynthia again, and head off to Canalave City, where we battle Barry again. He starts out with his Staraptor, who uses Double Team on the first turn, as we start out with Sword Stance. We then use a Thunderfang, which thankfully hits through the Double Team to take out Staraptor. Empoleon, Roserade and Rapidash all go down to an Earthquake, and last out was Heracross. Thunderfang takes Barry's Heracross down to red health, as Gliscor is hit with a Night Slash, which essentially does nothing. We then finish off the battle with one last Thunderfang. Having a quick look through over Byron's... wait, we probably don't need this anymore because everyone knows what I'm going to do by now. I'll just Sword Stance and Earthquake my way through his team. Let's get to it. So, I take out Magneton with a single Earthquake, and next was Steelix. I then now used Sword Stance, as Steelix Ice Fang does about a quarter damage. We then finish off Steelix with an Earthquake, and last was Bastiodon. It was certainly a cakewalk, as we finished on with another Earthquake and earned ourselves the Mind Badge. Saturn was up next, and his Golbat went down to a single Thunderfang, and out comes Bronzor, and being the idiot that I am, I forget Bronzor has Levitate and use Earthquake, as he uses Iron Defense. I then use Thunderfang for about a quarter damage as Bronzor flinches. It was going to be a grind, so I went with Sword Stance next, as Bronzor's Rock Tomb only does 4 damage. We then hit another Thunderfang, which brings Bronzor down to yellow health, and flinch it. Another Thunderfang finish off Bronzor, and out last is Toxicroak. We then use another Earthquake, and that was all she wrote for this battle. At Lake Verity we take on Mars, and her Golbat barely survives a Thunderfang, as she uses Air Cutter for minimal damage. We then finish off her Golbat with a Poison Jab, and next was Bronzor. Thunderfang did just under half as Bronzor used Iron Defense. We then hit another Thunderfang to bring Bronzor to yellow health, as it lands a Confuse Ray. But on the next turn we managed to take Bronzor down with another Thunderfang. Last is Purugly, and fair to say we got absolutely crucified by the RNG here, as Purugly hits a Hypnosis, and kept Gliscor asleep for 5 straight turns. By the time he wakes up, would you believe it, he hits himself in confusion, and we get taken out by Slash. God damn it. Anyway, second attempt goes much better, as I first decide to use Sword Stance before doing any attacking. We get hit with a Supersonic but manage to take care of Golbat. We luckily snap out of confusion in the first turn against Bronzor and nearly take it out with Thunderfang. We then take it out on the next turn, and Purugly once again goes down to a single Earthquake. We then head to Snowpoint City, but before that I find another Heart Scale and replace Thunderfang with Firefang in preparation for the ice battles ahead. So we're now at probably the most difficult battle of this run. Candace, the Ice-type gym leader. And we can see why, with her Sneasel knowing Ice Shard, a move that always goes first, and Frostlass having Snow Cloak, which boosts its evasion in the hail, and she will almost certainly send out a Bomber Snow with Snow Warning before her Frostlass. This will make things quite difficult, as Firefang isn't even 100% accurate. But we'll see how we go, and as always, I'll spam Sword Stance and see how we go from there. So, right off the bat, we used Sword Stance a couple of times, and I might have gotten a little bit greedy, as Sneasel's Ice Shards take Gliscor down to 49 HP by the time we finish it off. Anyway, a Bomber Snow and Frostlass both go down easily to a single Firefang, but we missed the final Firefang to take out Piloswine, as Gliscor goes down to an Avalanche. That was unlucky, but I think we can get this dub pretty easily. So second time round goes even worse, as Sneasel hits a critical Ice Shard for massive damage, as we use a Sword Stance. I then decide to go early and use Firefang on the next turn, but we miss and were taken out by Ice Shard. Yeah, this is getting a bit out of hand. This is a 95% accurate move, but it seems more like 50. Or that's just how Pokemon games work, I don't know. Third attempt, and after one setup of Sword Stance, Firefang actually hits. Oh my god! We then take out a Bomber Snow with a single Firefang, but guess what happened next? Yep, you guessed it. We missed a Firefang to finish off Frostlass. Fourth attempt, and exactly like the last, we managed a single Sword Stance and took down Sneasel and a Bomber Snow with Firefang. But again, Firefang just can't seem to hit Frostlass. Okay, alright. Now after doing some calculations, the accuracy of Firefang goes down to about 76% after factoring Snowcloak. But we've missed it twice in a row against Frostless now, and it only has about a 6% chance of happening. Yeah, I'm just starting to think this game hates me. But it's okay, because we'll fight through this crappy RNG together. And so we're back with our 5th attempt, and once again we were able to set up a single sword stance on Sneasel before taking it out with Firefang, leaving us with about 89 HP. Then it was a Bomber Snow, but he was an easy one-shot once again, and next was Frostlass. But this time, we were able to hit Firefang. But, once again against Topolo Swine, Firefang actually hit!
What happened? What happened?
Thank God that Firefang hit, because if not, I would have been spewing. So anyway, we then witnessed Jupiter acting all high and mighty because she beat Barry. Like, mate, it's not that hard to beat Barry. Am I right? Next is the Cyrus battle at Galactic HQ. First up is this Sneasel, who does massive damage with an Ice Punch as we use Sword Stance. A single Firefang then takes Sneasel out, and then it was Crobat. A Firefang isn't enough to take out Crobat as it uses an Air Cutter, which doesn't do all that much. Cyrus then uses a full restore, as another Firefang takes Crobat to red health again. We then finish it off with a Poison Jab. Last is Honchkrow, but he goes down to a single Poison Jab. Not much to talk about during the Saturn battle deeper in Galactic HQ, as we pretty much basically sweep through his whole team. Next up is the Mars and Jupiter double battle, and we can see that I probably won't be able to use Earthquake to our advantage here because both of them have Bronzor and Golbat, and both of which are immune to ground types, whether it be to type or to ability. So to start the battle, Barry obviously has to flex that he's got a Munchlax, but anyway, moving on. We use Firefang to take out one of the Bronzors as the other confuses Munchlax. Jupiter then sends out a Skuntank, but we dispatch her and Munchlax with an Earthquake, whilst Bronzor sets up a light screen. Barry then sends out a Rapidash and Jupiter sends out Golbat as we use Firefang to nearly take out Bronzor, but the job is finished by Rapidash. Then Mars sends out Purugly, who we once again take out with Earthquake, with Rapidash going down as collateral damage. Barry then sends out a Staraptor, and Mars Golbat, as I use a Sword Stance because I knew a single Firefang probably wouldn't be enough to one-hit a Golbat. Staraptor then uses Takedown on Golbat, which takes it down to about 3rd health, as we get hit with an Air Cutter and was poisoned by Sludge Bomb. Our next Firefang takes down Mars' Golbat, as Barry takes care of Jupiter's, winning us the battle. After the battle, Barry heals us up, and then dips, as we go on a date together with Cynthia to the Distortion World. Looking at Cyrus's Distortion World team, there's a lot of threats that are posed to us, with those being Houndoom's Will-O-Wisp, which can leave us burnt, and also half our attack. Another threat is Gyarados with its Ice Fang, and even more dangerously is Weavile, and whether it can make use of its Stab Ice Punch, and it only can if it will outspeed us. It's pretty frail though, so I think whoever goes first will get the KO. First up is Houndoom, who expectedly burns us as Gliscor uses Sword Stance. I then decide to use another Sword Stance due to the burn halving our attack, as Houndoom's Flamethrower does a decent chunk of our health. We then take out Houndoom with an Earthquake on the next turn, and next out is Weavile, who we take care of with a Firefang before it can use Ice Punch. That's one hurdle gone. But Gyarados is too much, as Poison Jab just does over half as Waterfall takes Gliscor down. So second try, I decide to take out Houndoom with an Earthquake before it could use Will-O-Wisp. But surprisingly, Weavile manages to survive a Firefang as it hits a massive Ice Punch. But we were able to live. We then take out Weavile with a Poison Jab, but once again we couldn't get past Gyarados. Poison Jab does less than half health as Gyarados hits an Ice Fang which left Gliscor with 12 HP, before another one takes us out. On the third attempt, I then opt to go with a similar strategy and took out Houndoom with an Earthquake. But then I tried an Earthquake instead of Firefang to see if the stab damage could one-shot Weavile, and it did. Next was the ominous Gyarados, but we got really lucky as our first Poison Jab poisons Gyarados, while his Ice Fang takes 1/3 of our health. But instead of taking Gyarados out, I activate Big Brain Time and use Sword Stance as another Ice Fang takes us down to 44 HP. Another Poison Jab then finished off Gyarados as Cyrus sends out his Honchkrow. but with a buffed attack, we take it down with a single poison jab. Last is Crobat, and a Fire Fang takes him to just above red health, as an Air Slash leaves us with just 13 HP. Cyrus then uses a full restore as we use a poison jab to leave Crobat with just above half health. That was enough for Fire Fang to finish the job. Cyrus then, of course, like every good team leader, has a sook and thinks about how he lost to a 10-year-old kid with only a Gliscor. We then take on the most legendary of all legendary Pokemon, Giratina. We then used the Master Ball to catch Giratina and named him Fish, with a PH, because that's funny, I think. So anyway, onto the Sunyshore Gym, and looking at Volkner's team, there's probably not much I have to tell you other than Sword Stance and Earthquake. Alright, let's go. So I used Sword Stance to start off the battle, as Jolteon could only sit there and watch, and I swept through his whole team with Earthquake. What? I just told you I'd do that. So, now we're off to the Pokemon League, and let's look at what the Elite Four and the Champion have in store for us. Aaron's going to be an easy win, as we can just use Sword Stance and spam 5 Fang on 4 out of his 5 Pokemon, with the exception being Drapion, where we can just use Earthquake. Bertha might be a little bit more challenging, as she starts off with a Wish Cache, and as I'm setting up an Earthquake, hopefully its Aqua Tail doesn't do too much damage. Other threats on her team would be Gliscor and Rhyperior because they both have ice attacks, but if I'm able to get off those Sword Stance, I should be able to one-hit KO both of them. Up next is Flint, but like his mate Volkner, he'll probably be just a case of Sword Stance and Earthquake. And unlike Cyrus's Houndoom, his one doesn't have Will-O-Wisp, so that eliminates the danger of him burning us and lowering our attack, making this even more easier than it already is. The last Elite Four is Lucian, and the only real threat I see here is Mr. Mime with Reflect, which could stop us from one-hit KOing all of his Pokemon. But we'll see what happens. Last up is the Goddess herself, and this will be a really interesting battle, because it'll all depend on how much Spiritomb can do to us as we set up Sword Stance. If it can 2-hit KO us, or even 1-hit, which I think is unlikely, then we're probably done. But first, we have to battle Barry again. And once again, I use the unbeatable strategy of Sword Stance and just go ham. And once again, it proved to be effective, as we take out Staraptor with a Poison Jab, and Empoleon, Rapidash both go down to an Earthquake. Roserade goes down to a Fire Fang, and then it was Big Boy. But it was an easy one-shot with an Earthquake, and last is Heracross, who goes down to a single Fire Fang. Now on to the Elite Four, and first up is Aaron, and to no one's surprise, I used Sword Stance first up, as Yanmega used Double Team. Thankfully, Gliscor hits a Fire Fang, and we take it out. Aaron then sends out Drapion, presumably to use Ice Fang, but a super effective Thunderquake takes it out before it even gets the chance. And that was a wrap really, as his Scizor, Heracross and Vespiquen all go down to a Fire Fang. Next up is Bertha, and can you guess my strategy for this battle? Sword Stance. Yep, bet you didn't think of that. So, anyway, I used Sword Stance 3 times as Bertha's Wish Cache and uses Sandstorm, which doesn't affect us at all, and its 2 Aqua Tails take us down to just under half health. A buffed Poison Jab then takes Wish Cache out, despite not being very effective. And next out was Bertha's very own Gliscor. But unfortunately for her, her Gliscor was no match, and we take it out with a Fire Fang, as Bertha then sends out her Golem. But it also goes down to a single move, with that being Earthquake. The same fate also awaited her Rhyperior, as she then sends out her last Pokemon Hippowdon, and for some odd reason, probably because I wanted to save power points, I used Poison Jab instead of an Earthquake, which would have almost certainly one-shotted. But it didn't really matter, as Hippowdon used Yawn, and we finish it off next turn with a Poison Jab. Next up is Flint, and well, it's better if I just show you what happened instead of explaining. Yeah, that wasn't the most competitive battle, I wouldn't say. We didn't even use Sword Stance at all, but hey, I'll take it. So now against Lucian, I'm hoping for a little bit of a more intriguing battle. But again, you guys know the drill, 3 Sword Stance while Mr. Mime sets up a Reflect and Light Screen. We then take out Mr. Mime with a Poison Jab, and next out was Espeon. It goes down to an Earthquake, and then Lucian sends out Bronzong, who also goes down to a Fire Fang. Alakazam then goes down to a poison jab, and Gallade couldn't withstand an earthquake. Now it's time for the destroyer of dreams and hopes, Cynthia. Also I thought, because the great Cynthia herself also succumbed to the most manly and magnificent strategy out there, Sword Stance Spam. But I'm an idiot and forget Ghost resists poison and use Poison Jab, as it only does about 3/4 damage. Cynthia then heals up Spiritomb, but it goes down to 2 more Poison Jabs. Next is Milotic, but we take her out with a single Earthquake before she could use Ice Beam. Next is Togekiss, but it is swiftly taken out with a Poison Jab. Then it was Cynthia's ace Pokemon, who has taken the lives of so many Nuzlockers. But she goes down to a single Earthquake. Roserade is then out next, but is taken down by Firefang, and Lucario couldn't survive an Earthquake. And that was it. We've become the champion. So that was intriguing, and I'll be the first to admit that I got carried pretty hard by Sword Stance, but that moves in the game for a reason, right? Though I had a lot of fun recording, and I'm looking forward to doing more in the future. Anyway, before we finish off, let's have a final word from Gliscor.
Hey boss!
So, thanks for watching everyone. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe if you want to, and feel free to comment any feedback you have for this video and or you have any ideas for future videos. I'm Snuggu, and have a good one. Cheers!